Hello there. I hope you're doing well. And welcome back. Or welcome if this is the first time you've listened to one of these episodes. I have so much on my mind today. I feel compelled to just blather. But I won't. I promise. I won't do that. I'll just say that I'm coming to today's reading and commentary just fresh off of watching some footage of the monk's walk for peace that's happening right now, that's very present in media, and feeling very emotional, feeling very moved, and also feeling very passionately about recommitting to right resolve, which is the chapter that we're on in this beautiful book. So yeah, that is my fabricated state. So I'm curious myself to see what the rhythm of this episode will be. We'll find out. But we're going to get right into it after I tell you a little bit about what's happening here. So this is a reading of the book On the Path, an anthology on the Noble Eightfold Path, drawn from the Pāli Canon. And the book is written by Ṭhānissaro Bhikkhu, who's an American Buddhist monk, and he's widely respected for his translations of Buddhist texts and his teachings on meditation and the Dhamma. His works are deeply rooted in the Theravāda Buddhist tradition, emphasizing a direct, practical approach to the Buddhist teachings. And if you want to find out more, about the book, or you want to get access to this free book that he made available for free to us, then you can expand the description here and you'll see a link to the book. You can download a PDF if that's your preference. They've enabled that, I believe. Or you can just read it, on a browser, just right off the webpage. And thank you very much, Ṭhānissaro Bhikkhu, for making this book freely available, and also for putting it in the Creative Commons so that I can read it and make this podcast, so long as I'm not profiting from it, which I'm not, and allowing me to do that without having to pay licensing fees. So I deeply appreciate your offering. So let's get into it. We are right in the middle of right resolve. Right resolve. What Ṭhānissaro Bhikkhu is laying out here as the second of the Eightfold Path. And we're picking up on page 264, Sutta 152. And this is Sister Suba speaking. And so just to give you a little bit of context about who Sister Suba is, and again, I want to reiterate, in case you haven't, this is your first time here, I'm not a monk. I've never been ordained. I am a lay practitioner. I strongly recommend that you not use me for a reference to Buddhism. I really strongly encourage you to seek out access to documents that are as mostly associated with the region that it came from, and try to get back as far as you can, just like with the game of telephone. And that's what I would recommend personally. That's what I did, and et cetera, et cetera. So these are my reflections. This is coming through my own fabricated state and my own level of knowledge, which is not very little. And I am not a Buddhist scholar. Yeah, but I've been meditating for a very long time and practicing this stuff for a very long time. Got introduced to it very young, and it makes up my mental map. And again, I also want to be very transparent that I use AI and other trusted resources. This book, to me, in and of itself, is a trusted resource, from my view, to assist me. And so that's, again, why I wouldn't refer to me. This is really, I think of this more of just commentary, my commentary on my own practice, the way that I've been working with Buddhism for, a very, very, very long time. And so, yeah, there you go. Let's get into it. So apparently, Sister Suba is a very early Buddhist nun, and her verses appear in the Theravāda. I hope I'm saying that right. Theravāda, Verses of the Elder Nuns. And so, you may have noticed in earlier chapters, if you're, continuing on, if this isn't a one-off for you, Sister Dhammadita, we've been listening, hearing from some women so far. And again, I don't remember which episode or which page in the book. Well, it's not in the book. It was my commentary, about, how were women perceived in early Buddhism. I won't do a whole account on that, but I did talk about it in earlier sections. Robot tells me that Sister Suba lived during Buddha's time. So was a student of Buddha, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. And what I'm also learning here from Robot, again, fact check me, is that the Theravāda is part of the Khuddaka Nikaya. Gosh, again, my apologies if I didn't quite get that right. In the Pāli Canon, which, again, as noted, this book is, Theravāda tradition comes from the Pāli Canon. Yeah, that's kind of its source text. And so Robot also provides a little bit of a social setting here for Sister Suba, Northern India. This is what Robot says. Northern India, where women's religious authority was constrained by caste, family obligation, and expectations of beauty, marriage, and fertility. And yes, women are continued, to be perceived as in need of being controlled. That's very old. It continues to exist. I certainly don't play that game, but one thing I appreciated about Buddhism when I discovered it in my early 20s, the raging Gen X feminist that I was, and quite frankly continue to be, in my own way. But I was very grateful, to, and again, I can't remember which episode, but I was very grateful to discover, that, and I can't remember who it was, but there was a student of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, whatever, that really encouraged him to permit women to become ordained. And they still had a lot of rules, and there's a lot, again, the world still, even on, it's an amusing hypocrisy from where I'm standing as a female who practices Buddhism, that we have all this talk, about right view and what right view actually is and concerns. And it's kind of amusing from where I'm standing that we still believe that women should be controlled. How very, very odd. But at any rate, yeah, very early on, 2,600 years ago, and I don't really know how long it took for, Buddha to permit women in, but eventually it happened. And so Sister Suba was a very early student of the Buddha. And this is really interesting because Robot has given me all this historical context, and now I'm gonna kind of geek out. And again, please fact check me here, because remember, this is Robot that I'm using to help me here. She is portrayed as a woman of notable physical beauty. That in and of itself is can be a real albatross for women. And she renounced household life. She describes direct confrontation with sexualized attention. Yeah. This is a big reason why I'm very, very mindful. I mean, I'm 54 now, so I'm losing my beauty. I used to model when I was much, much younger, and objectively speaking, I certainly wasn't beautiful, but I was a good-looking young woman, apparently enough by the metrics to be able to do some modeling. And unwanted sexualization was what created the fabricated conditions for my becoming my version of a feminist. I'll tell you more about that, in a little while, so that you don't go away leaving here with some kind of narrative that you've put on me about what feminism means because of your own fabricated conditioning. But yeah, when you're in quote unquote spiritual spaces that portend to understand non-being, then the idea that mechanisms of control would still exist, which is the very manifestation of being, ego, it's hard to take that seriously. It's hard to respect it. It's hard to really take it seriously. So some women stay and just kind of tolerate it, I didn't. Yeah, I just don't have that kind of mind, I don't do well with hypocrisy. I just don't do well with it. I've never done well with it. I even remember just being a thorn in the side of my teachers because I've always kind of had this view. Even as a little kid, I remember always having this kind of view, this kind of sense, this kind of Gnostic kind of perception of reality that if people can't do it, they can't model it, then I can't take them seriously. They're not serious. They shouldn't be open in their mouth. Yeah, they're not in a position to open their mouth. And that's my view. And that's actually the Buddhist view as well. And again, you can go back and you can look at maybe not the last episode, but the last couple of episodes when we began chapter whatever this is and right resolve, about the Buddhist view, about quote unquote teaching and the role of quote unquote teaching in Buddhism. So at any rate, I have gone way, way, way off the rails. So now that we have it, which I know I'm really grateful to have, I'm learning so much here that it's just, as I mentioned before in other episodes, this is really rich for me. And so anybody who listens, thanks. And let's get into it. What does Sister Suba say in Sutta 152, bottom of page 264? I was a child with clean clothes when I first heard the Dhamma, and within me, heedful, was a breakthrough to the truth. Then I arrived at an enormous dissatisfaction with all sensuality. Seeing the danger in self-identity, I longed only for renunciation. Leaving my circle of relatives, slaves, workers, prosperous villages and fields, delightful, enticing possessions, I went forth, abandoning not insignificant wealth, having gone out through conviction in the well-taught true Dhamma. It wouldn't be proper for me, aspiring to nothingness, having cast off gold and silver to take them back. Gold and silver don't buy awakening, don't buy peace. This gold isn't proper for contemplatives. This isn't noble wealth. This is greediness, intoxication, delusion, bondage to dust, suspicion, many troubles. There's no lasting stability here. It's to this extent that many, many men, heedless their hearts defiled, opposing one another, create conflicts, murder, bondage, calamity, loss, grief, and lamentation. Many misfortunes are seen for those head over heels in sensuality. So my relatives, why do you, like enemies, try to bind me to sensuality? You know I've gone forth, seeing the danger in sensuality. Gold coin and bullion can't put an end to effluence. Sensuality is an enemy, a murderer, hostile, arrows and bonds. So my relatives, why do you, like enemies, try to bind me to sensuality? You know I've gone forth with shaven head, wrapped in a patchwork cloak, leftover alms scraps, gleanings, a robe made from cast-off cloth. That's what's proper for me, the requisites of one with no home. The great seers have rejected sensuality, both human and divine. Released are they in the place of security. Arrived are they in unshaken ease. So may I not come into union with sensuality, in which no shelter is found. It's an enemy, a murderer, sensuality, painful, like a mass of flame. Greed, an obstacle, fearful, threatened, full of thorns, very discordant, a great cause of delusion. Sensuality, a frightening attack, like a snake's head in which fools delight, blinded, run of the mill, because many people in the world are stuck in the mud of sensuality, unknowing. They don't realize the ending of birth and death. Many people follow the path to bad destinations because of sensuality bringing disease on themselves. Thus, sensuality creates enemies. It burns, is defiled. It's the bait of the world, constraining, the bondage of death, maddening, deceptive, agitating the mind. It's a net cast by Mara for the defilement of living beings, with endless drawbacks, much pain, great poison, giving little enjoyment, creating conflict, drawing up the good side. In brackets is what this here. I have to assume that Ṭhānissaro added this because after up the good side, it says in brackets of the mind. So I'll read that again. Giving little enjoyment, creating conflict, drawing up the good side of the mind. I, having cast off much trouble like this, caused by sensuality, will not return to it, as I always delight in unbinding. Doing battle with sensuality in hopes of the cool state, I will stay heedful. Finding delight in the ending of fetters, I follow the path, eightfold, straight, griefless, stainless, secure, over which great seers have crossed. And this comes from Thig 13:54, THIG, which stands for Theravāda. All right. So I feel a lot of emotion, a lot of anger, and also just a lot of, really at the end of the day, we're monkeys. And that helps me a lot. Oh, but yeah, this story, 2,600 years ago, think about this. She was a student of early Buddhist traditions. She's coming out of the Theravāda. That's as old as Buddhism gets. That's the original, that's the initial, that's the old stuff there. And I can relate to her story 100%. So what does feminism look like for me today? I think today what feminism looks like for me really has a lot to do with what the last episode's reading was about, where we were, I can't remember what the sutta was that was describing the leper with oozing, smelly, stinky, rotting, flesh-eating sores. So I think what I do with what Sister Suba is getting at here and the emotion that came up in me is I bring my full practice. And that's what feminism looks like for me today. In other words, I went through a period of time in my life where I hated men. And I've talked about this in other episodes, actually. Just because they had done so much damage to me and growing up. And so I wasn't doing it consciously. I would end relationships sometimes in a very unmindful way because some part of me deep down, I think, didn't really believe that they really loved me. They just wanted to fuck me. Yeah, that's what I believed. And if you've listened to other episodes or if you're familiar with Buddhism, I mean, if you're really familiar with Buddhism, I mean, not just, the Western, anyway, don't get me started. That is Buddhism. Just understand the Four Noble Truths, right view, that's it. That's it. That was my fabricated conditioning at that time. I was unskillful, not because I left, the way I left. Leaving needed to happen. We have to learn to recognize ourselves in the choices that we make. And if we don't, that's, to my view, worth acknowledging and responding to, not just for your sake, but for everybody's sake. What I like to say with some particular client that I don't like the word client, just somebody that I work with is, I think the greatest gift that any of us can give ourselves, practically speaking, not just from a Buddhist perspective, although I know he would agree because I've read it all over the place, is, if we can just learn to nip it in the bud. So as I was reading this passage, and you might have heard it in my voice, I had just a well just a groundswell of emotion come up. Incredible, just feelings of loss, anger, disgust, contempt, sadness, and as I just mentioned, an incredible sense of resolve. Resolve is one of the greatest healing gifts I've ever given myself. It's definitely softened me as a person in good ways, and I think it's also hardened me as a person in good ways. And so that's going to sound a little weird. What do I mean by that? It's helped me to be much more discerning about who and how I am contributing and what I am contributing to phenomena. And, this can happen in the moment. This can happen right there in the moment, right there while it's happening. It needs to be trained. It takes a lot of practice. So a couple of really cool things have happened for me, which I think are really great because of that, because of really what this sutta is about, and really, because of the historical context of Sister Suba. Yes, it can become quite easy as a relatively attractive woman to use it to her advantage if she's not being taken seriously in any other way. Why not, right? We're all looking to survive. That transactional kind of relationship that we have with that, right? And look, if you're not going to be taken seriously and you're trying to establish a sense of autonomy in your own life and your own choice making, well, anybody who's got any intelligence at all is going to look for the method that's going to get them there the fastest. What's the most strategic? But that's a response. That's not a condition. Yeah. To me, Homo sapiens, like weird kind of love/hatred of women is so fucking weird. I think what's really interesting, I'm 54 now, and so, some might believe that I don't have any value, right? I mean, I'm not fuckable anymore, right? I have lines, and I'm aging. I haven't done anything to my body to make me not look like I'm aging. Not that I'm judging that. I'm just saying I have not. So, I look like a 54-year-old woman. Everything fades. Everything's impermanent. So it takes a lot of things off the table for me that are very ego-soothing that I'm glad are gone. I can't tell you actually from where I'm standing how much of a relief it is to know that I'm not being looked at, that I've aged out. It's a great relief. I feel like a target's been taken off my back, I can take the armor off a little bit around men because I know they don't want to fuck me. Weird, huh? Nah, a lot of women feel that way. They may not tell you that. They may not even know it themselves. But I guarantee you I'm not the only woman who passed for reasonably attractive in their youth who didn't feel that way. There's plenty of us, I know, because I've talked to them. I spend time with them. Anywho, let's unpack this sutta. So one of the things that I love about this is how strident it is. I honestly don't think you need me to unpack this at all. She's so direct, and she uses such accessible language. She uses descriptive words that we can phenomenologically relate to. But I'll as per the usual, I do use AI, not blindly, but AI often provides, I find, a really kind of accessible way of interpreting, or interpreting what is being said specifically here. And I'm sure that you picked up on this as well, that it was almost as if she was speaking directly to her family and to the people in her life who were probably seeing her beauty and definitely would have monetary gain if they could kind of welcome her back into, traditional lay life. and lure her away from being a monastic, she would be fairly worth quite a lot, as an attractive woman. She has very strong feelings about this. Why are you acting like my enemy? What are you, my enemy? You're trying to lure me back? I think most women that have, and this is by no means to make men feel badly about being male. But if anyone's listening to this and is interested, for some, it might be desired, wanted. But for me, I hated it. I found it disrespectful. It felt like I had been immediately objectified, and so I immediately felt disgust. Disgust is a dangerous, dangerous phenomena arising. It produces all sorts of mischief. So she's got really strong feelings about this. She has chosen to become a monastic, which means that she left her family to live a monastic life, because to her view, she begins with, I was a child. So she says the first time she heard the Dhamma, she was a child, and hearing it changed her fundamentally. I know it changed me fundamentally as well. Again, it's a path. I would imagine that, if you're hearing it and makes you feel bad, I'm not saying don't follow it. I'm just, that's interesting. That's good information. That's good information for you. When I heard it, I can relate to what she's saying here. I was a child when I first heard the Dhamma. And, she says here, let me go back and just read. I was a child with clean clothes. Think about that for a second. So think about the time. And she alludes to it later as well. Much like Siddhartha Gautama, although he was married and had kids, and we know when he kind of woke up. But she was a kid, and she got exposed, and she had money. That's clean clothes, not insignificant wealth. And she heard the Dhamma, and within me, heedful, was a breakthrough to truth. You can imagine, put yourself in her shoes for a moment. I mean, we're all different, right? But I can relate to Sister Suba. I have this kind of mind as well, and always have had this kind of mind. Any human, if you want to tie this back to psychology, a human who holds something incredibly salient, I believe this. This is the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. This is my truth. I know this is the truth. I can feel it in my bones. It is the truth. This is the truth, which is basically all of us. We're either aware that we're doing that, or we're not aware that we're doing that. So she had this as a child. She heard the Dhamma, and she saw truth in it, and she just immediately arrived at an enormous dissatisfaction with all sensuality. And, someone asked me the other day, it was really interesting. I'm sorry to do this to you. I promise I'll get back. And wouldn't that be fun? This might actually be the whole episode. It's just this one sutta. It really got to me. I can relate to it a lot. I'm learning a lot. It excites me. It also is making me cry a little. This is great stuff. So I might just stay here. This just might be the whole episode, but I'm thinking here before I get back to it. I do and I don't, and it's, so I get myself into trouble. It's of my own making, and I recognize that. I absolutely recognize that. But any of you who listen to this podcast on the regular know that I somehow got myself into a clinging trap around the Western modernization of Buddhism. And I think it's because of what's been left out, to my view, is particularly responsible for what I'm seeing happening in the world around not peace, no peace, continued war, continued violence, continued tribalism, and so it just fucking pisses me off. So I realize I'm not at my best shining Buddhist moment in those times. I'm well aware. I really am. And I bow deeply to you. Anyway, I am going to move on. Okay, so we actually have a series now of very short suttas. And so I think what I'll do is because each of these is about a paragraph to 2 paragraphs each, I think I'll just read a series of them and then kind of discuss them overall. So this is Sutta 153. And who is the person who, subject to death, is afraid and in terror of death? There is the case of the person who has not abandoned passion, desire, fondness, thirst, fever, and craving for sensuality. Then he comes down with a serious disease. As he comes down with a serious disease, the thought occurs to him, oh, those beloved sensual pleasures will be taken from me, and I will be taken from them. He grieves and is tormented, weeps, beats his breast, and grows delirious. This is a person who, subject to death, is afraid and in terror of death. And that comes from AN 4:184. Sutta 154. In dependence on the property of sensuality, there occurs the perception of sensuality. In dependence on the perception of sensuality, there occurs the resolve for sensuality, the desire for sensuality, the fever for sensuality, the quest for sensuality. Questing for sensuality, monks, an uninstructed, run-of-the-mill person conducts himself wrongly through three means: through body, through speech, and through mind. And then he's got an ellipses here, so it must go on. Just as if a man were to throw a burning firebrand into a dry, grassy wilderness and not quickly stamp it out with his hands and feet, and thus whatever animals inhabiting the grass and timber would come to ruin and loss. In the same way, monks, any contemplative or Brahmin who doesn't quickly abandon, dispel, demolish, and wipe out of existence an out-of-tune, unskillful perception once it has arisen will dwell in stress in the present life, threatened, despairing, and feverish, and on the breakup of the body after death can expect a bad destination. And that comes from SN 14:12. Sutta 155. Non-ill will. When you give birth to hatred for an individual, you should develop goodwill for that individual. Thus, the hatred for that individual should be subdued. When you give birth to hatred for an individual, you should develop compassion for that individual. Thus, the hatred for that individual should be subdued. When you give birth to hatred for an individual, you should develop equanimity toward that individual. Thus, the hatred for that individual should be subdued. When you give birth to hatred for an individual, you should direct your thoughts to the fact of his being the product of his actions. This Venerable One is the doer of his actions, heirs of his actions, born of his actions, related by his actions, and has his actions as his arbitrator. Whatever action he does, for good or for evil, to that will he fall heir. Thus the hatred for that individual should be subdued. And that comes from AN 5:161. So I'm going to stop there. That's a lot. And this last one in particular, I know when I first encountered it, and even now I can feel it. And it's like, okay, arguments that are forming in my mind. And so I want to pause right here and kind of unpack these three. So I'll be right back. Stand by. Okay, so I'm back. And it's about a week later. So much has happened. So much has happened since I said I'll be right back after I unpack this. So forgive me in advance if my approach feels very discordant because I'm in a very different state of mind. And, oh man, I've said this before, to my view, I think that finding a way to make meaning of your life as a human is really, really helpful. And I think there's a lot of research to support that as well. It's really important, so there's a lot, most things I don't know, but I've learned a thing or two. And, one of the things I've learned for certain, especially given the bizarreness of my life, the constant moving and just the fucking crazy town of so much of my life, as an adult and, someone who's had a way of making meaning for so long now, of having a way of making meaning in your life, whatever that is for you. Perhaps it's vis-a-vis religion. Perhaps you came up in a religious home and that's already very readily available for you and it's serving you. I also hope that it's supporting you in critical thinking in relationship to the ethics of your religion. Maybe it's not religion. Maybe it's something else. I know Stoicism is making a comeback. And, Zen is very popular in, Zen Buddhism is very popular in the West as well. Maybe you're wholly atheist, which great, that's fine. Not everybody's going to agree with me on that, but from where I'm standing, where Buddhists stand, if they're really Buddhists, is great, whatever blows your hair back, but find a way to make meaning. I would argue and make ethics and self-compassion and compassion foundational. Okay, I just had to say that because a lot of shit's gone down since I started this. And it's ironic, given what I just said earlier in the episode about how I was very unskillful as a young woman, broke some hearts because of how I felt about men. And here we are with the Epstein files. More and more information comes out. It's becoming more and more and more evident, more clear, crystal clear, that there are people that are implicated, people who chose to look the other way, people who covered, people who made excuses, people who rationalize their own cognitive dissonance for themselves, for pedophiliacs. I believe it's time for those people to be held to account. But isn't it cool to read this section right here? Because, before I laid it down again today, I needed to go back and kind of look at it again. And per the usual, I used AI to assist. And again, not a scholar, not a monk, blah, 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 blah. Read the things, read the disclaimers, whatever. And yes, I do use AI. And I always, and if you hear the anger in my voice, yeah, I am angry. But if you've listened to other episodes, then you'll notice I'm not really going to apologize for my anger. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with anger. So there you go. I get to be angry. What are you going to do? Huh? Come on over. So I like to say to the AI, the 5-year-old in me, the wise 5-year-old, right? That's what I'll say to AI. Hey, talk to me like I'm a wise 5-year-old. So here's what AI said when I asked it to unpack these last few suttas. Will I say hold for plain? No, I won't. These teachings say, says Robot, chasing pleasures makes people suffer, and learning to let go without hatred makes the mind safe, calm, and free. So for me personally, I would need way, way, way more than that. Way more than that. Because again, remember what I just told you my fabricated conditioning is? I am coming into this at a time in my culture where something's hitting very close to home for me as a victim of child sexual assault. And I get to bring the full force of my Buddhist practice to this time and to every single person who propped these people up, no matter what they tell themselves, no matter how they try to convince themselves they didn't have a role to play. Maybe they look the other way. The excuse makers. I see you. We all see you. There's a lot of us that see you. And I'm fucking mad. And I have every right to be mad. Every fucking woman, every fucking where deserves to be fucking mad. And you better fucking get used to it. And that's Buddhism too. That's Buddhism too, So this morning I sat for 30 minutes, usually 40. And I've talked about this before. And you'll hear Buddhist monks say, don't cry, it's the ego. They're absolutely right. Well, I'm not a fucking monk. So I got up and I sat in meditation and lots of tears. That these people keep getting away from this, with this. That the world keeps allowing women, encouraging women to be treated like this. We treat women worse than animals. I'd rather be fucking eaten than fucking gang raped. So fuck you. And if I've lost you, great. And if you're still with me, fantastic. So how do I use Buddhism to help me when I'm this angry? I have to come back to these ideas. So Sutta 154 is really describing how Desire can get us into trouble. Right, Epstein? So how can it get us into trouble? Something pleasant exists. So something feels good. The property of sensuality. Something feels good, and we want more of it because we're animals at the end of the day. So something feels good and we want it. Something feels good and we take it. You notice it's nice. You move toward it. You want it more. And then your body and your mind heat up around it. There's that fire property again. You start chasing after it. It becomes a quest for you. It becomes domination for you. Wanting the thing, having the thing, getting the thing. It's pretty fucking ironic, isn't it? That we're here right now. Right, Epstein? So what goes wrong, Epstein? So in Buddhism, to my understanding, when we start chasing pleasure, we start behaving badly. In 3 ways. We start doing harmful things. Right, Epstein? We lie, we snap, we manipulate. Sound familiar? We obsess, we get resentful, we get confused. So I'm sure that we can all relate to this, right? Like I know I can. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I could tell you right now, just even in this moment, like even yesterday, I snapped at a friend / colleague, because I was angry and I snapped. It wasn't hateful, but I was aggressive. I'm a fucking tough chick, man. That's how I fucking roll. I was way more aggressive than I wanted to be with this person who I care very much about. So, look, we're all going to have these experiences. We want something, right? We want something to be different. We just want something, right, Epstein? So in Buddhism, the idea would be that it's not because the people are evil. And, I assure you that this is a fascinating, right? This is where I truly do not take what I like and leave the rest. Where I really do have to apply. And this is kind of how I look at, I think I'm going to go off on another one of my soapboxes here. So yeah, fast forward, or if you like them, great, stick around, tune in. There's all kinds of people in the world, and, there's all kinds of ways that we make meaning and then hold things salient vis-a-vis the meaning that we make. Those things that we value, and I've talked about Jonathan Haidt before, but there's someone else that's come out since then that's added even more things in about, why humans, different kinds of humans, what they hold salient and why. Perhaps loyalty is very important to them. Perhaps equality is important to them. Perhaps fairness is important to them. Perhaps protection and protecting is important to them. So these in and of themselves are not a problem. Am I going to say hold for plane? Wait for it? No. So in Buddhism, the suggestion would be it's because the mind is out of tune. And I talked about this earlier. I don't even remember because it's been so long since I picked this podcast up again, this episode up again. But, I mentioned earlier that I just do not, and now I feel this even now more than ever because of all the evidence that's coming out that's just so clearly there. And the people that are still protecting him. It's just weird. And this is not about party. This has nothing to do with party. It's not about party. It's about pedophilia and femicide. From where I'm standing, I understand him even less. But it does help me to imagine that his mind is very much out of tune. And I can tell you that one thing that helps this mind, Sarah's mind, in times like this, outside of just sitting in my own snot in tears in meditation. And, yeah, I know, that's my ego. Absolutely. Hells yes. Make no apologies for it in this regard. Other things that I can do to help me out. I will research everything I can about people like Epstein and people who come from this kind of money and just try to understand more this kind of mind. Does it make me less angry? No. And quite frankly, do I still have fantasies in meditation? Do thoughts creep in, right? Violent thoughts about what I'd like to do to Epstein and to men like him and what I probably could do, unless there was more than one of them. Oh, it's there. Sure it is. But that's what my practice is for, man. I spent so many years ruminating in that kind of hatred, and it will destroy you. It was destroying me. I can't afford it.
I just can't afford it, and I don't want to afford it, you know? For me, you know, as a Buddhist, because that's the most salient thing to me in my life, I need to look for things that help me to open my heart. And this is gonna be very alienating to some. I mean, this is really the boots on the ground radical stuff, not just in Buddhism. This is the radical stuff that Christ taught. This is the real Christianity, okay? The real stuff. And I'm sorry, I don't know enough about other religions, but I guarantee you I do know enough about some native traditions that this is what they say too. You know, this has to be an inside job. The world will never change for me because I want to. And there are photos everywhere in the world, just like the one of what's his fuck in Europe, that fucking whatever the fuck he is, straddled over a young girl who looked pretty limp to me. Those photos will always exist. They will never stop existing because the Epsteins of the world will keep being born. They just will. They'll just keep being born. My hope is that, you know, we can kind of make space. We can have enough intelligence, quite frankly. And I think we do. I think we all have enough intelligence. I really do. I believe that, you know, I may not sound like it, but the reason why I get so angry and the reason why I sound like I hate people so much is because of how much I believe that we can do better. Fuck on a large scale level, we can do better as individuals. We can practice. In other words, you know, I can go to an ICE protest if I want to, if that's something that I believe is important to me. But I don't protest. Buddhists don't protest. They don't protest. And I realize I'm being a little tricky here because you're like, wait a minute. I watched on TV right now that there are several, I believe they're Tibetan Buddhist monks that are walking 2,600 miles across America right now. So that's a form of protest. But the word protest, what does that mean? Opposition against an enemy. Buddhists don't do that. Buddhists don't do that. Buddhists don't do that. Period. Moralized anger, identity-based struggle, Buddhists don't do that. That's not Buddhism. So I like some of the words that you'll hear around Buddhism and how Buddhism stands up. Stands up for compassion. Things like refusal. Refusing to participate in harm. Refuse. Withdraw. Do not participate. Withdraw your time. Withdraw your energy. Not your compassion. Not your compassion, but your attention. Withdraw. Restraint. Standing firm in the Dhamma. Standing firm. We're in right resolve right now. Buddhists do not protest. And haven't you noticed that? If anybody, you know, I see people are clicking on, and I admit it, I don't look at my, whatchamacalls in the back end of things to see how, it messes with my mind. I'm not on social media. Y'all know all the things if you listen to this. But if any of you are watching this, you know, if you're watching the monks walk, many of them barefoot, you know, across the U.S., watch the effect that it's having on people. They walk in silence, carrying flowers and blessings. They don't protest. So anyway, I'm going way off the rails. I'll probably cut some of this, but I think I'm just going to move on because it has been a while and I think I just need a fresh sutta here. But yeah, there you go. That's my shot at it with the help of a robot here. And let's move on. So Sutta 156. Think. Happy at rest. May all beings be happy at heart. Whatever beings there may be, weak or strong, without exception, long, large, middling, short, subtle, gross, seen and unseen, living near and far away, born or seeking birth. May all beings be happy at heart. Let no one deceive another or despise another. Let no one deceive another or despise anyone anywhere, or through anger or resistance, perception, wish for another to suffer. As a mother would risk her life to protect her child, her only child, even so should one cultivate the heart limitlessly with regard to all beings. With goodwill for the entire cosmos, cultivate the heart limitlessly above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hostility or hate, whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. As long as one has banished torpor, one should be resolved on this mindfulness. This is called a Brahma, abiding here. And that comes from SN 1:8. And so happiness, my understanding is that, talked about this before in the book, Ṭhānissaro talks about this before. Happiness doesn't necessarily mean that we feel good. That's not, in Buddhism, happiness has really nothing to do with being comfortable, being entertained, being happy, being excited, feeling good all the time, getting everything we want so that we feel good all the time. It means no longer being internally tormented. No longer being internally tormented. That's what happiness is. Whatever beings there may be, without exception. Without exception. This is probably one of the... It's so hard to put words around this without... This has probably been one of the... Well, there's many, I guess. I feel like I'm always saying that, so there's a lot. Many, many things about this particular path that has helped me. Continues to really support me. Yeah, help me to make and find meaning no matter what is going on in my tiny, tiny little dot on the planet of being a tiny, tiny little dot in the rest of it. Is that when I sit, like this morning when I sat. And I have to be really careful. I have to really be careful about not watching too much news right now around the Epstein files because of my background, because of my childhood. And even though I have done an inordinate amount of therapy and all the things, this is deep for me. This is where the rubber meets the road. And it is going to sound radical. But I've done it for my offender as well, is that I wish them the Buddhist form of happiness. And the truth is that I mean it. I fucking mean it. I'm not play acting. And I was thinking about this the last couple of days, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, I've been meditating a long time and I'm pretty disciplined because of the urgency. It's like, I don't know, I'm babbling again, but I'll just say it is the medication. I will not become like him. I will not see living beings like he sees living beings. I see a little boy with a lot of money without his minions around to support him and all the dirt he has on all of the powerful people. He's just a little tiny man-child. And the violence in me wants to annihilate him. The old me would have killed him if you left me alone in a room with him. I would have tried. But this morning, that's not what happened. It was just like, fuck, man. There's all kinds of people that do his kind of dirty work in the world. And what else can I do, right? For my own sanity and to be the tough ass voice that some women really need till I'm fucking dead. What else can I do than meditate? Meditate. The Buddhist way. Or if your way is about kindness and not getting shit, great. If it's about getting shit, then I'd say stop doing that and do it a different way. And stop caring about all your stupid fucking shit. Moving on. Sutta 157. Suppose that a man were to come along carrying a hoe and a basket, saying, I will make this great earth be without earth. He would dig here and there, scatter soil here and there, spit here and there, urinate here and there, saying, be without earth, be without earth. Now, what do you think? Would he make this great earth be without earth? No, Lord. Why is that? Because this great earth is deep and enormous. It can't easily be made to be without earth. The man would reap only a share of weariness and disappointment. In the same way, monks, there are these 5 aspects of speech by which others may address you. Timely or untimely, true or false, affectionate or harsh, beneficial or unbeneficial, with the mind of goodwill or with inner hate. Others may address you in a timely way or an untimely way. They may address you with what is true or what is false. They may address you in an affectionate way or a harsh way. They may address you in a beneficial way or an unbeneficial way. They may address you with a mind of goodwill or with inner hate. In any event, you should train yourselves. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic to that person's welfare with a mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. We will keep pervading him with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and, beginning with him, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill equal to the great earth, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. That's how you should train yourselves. Even if bandits were to carve you up savagely limb by limb with a two-handled saw, he among you who let his heart get angered, even at that, would not be doing my bidding. Even then you should train yourselves. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic with the mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. We will keep pervading these people with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and beginning with them, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. That's how you should train yourselves. And that comes from MN 21. And so we're in right resolve. This is something that I do every day for the hardest people in my life. I have for a really long time. It's definitely one of the greatest relationships I've ever had, is the relationship with this. I ain't no Buddha sitting on the mountaintop. I will never be, right here, I will never be in this lifetime what Buddha is describing. That will never be me. I can just tell you right now, that's never going to be me. I have way too much passion, way too much fire. And there's a part of me that doesn't even want what he's offering here. Perhaps if I was a man. So it's not like this is easy for me. Are you kidding me? So, I mean, this is amazing, that anyone could get to this point. I'm absolutely thrilled that I can get up every day and feel genuine compassion for people like Epstein et al. And I actually do. Enough to just make my heart break, make my heart break for that kind of mind. And it's real. I'm not faking it. I'm not faking it till I make it, which, don't get me wrong, that's great. I mean, if, hey, faking it till you make it works for a lot of people. I had to fake it till I made it a long time in relationship to this practice. Nothing to do actually with Buddhism, but more work I did in the 12-step program and some 4th-step work, just about forgiveness in general. Forgiveness in general, because I was continuing to take poison. It's a saying, I believe, that I don't even know where it comes from actually, but it's actually something that you hear in 12 steps a lot. We take poison expecting the other to die. Well, I was doing a lot of that, so to my mind, this is a much more practical relationship that I have with metta here, because that's what the Buddha is describing. But I mean, this is some serious shit right here, man. I mean, this is some serious fucking shit. I mean, I met a woman once who, I think I might have already told this story, but I met a woman once who, her child was killed by a drunk driver. Her baby was killed by a drunk driver. And she was able to bring full throttle compassion. And it was like, she said it just broke her wide open. She was able to forgive this man. She was able to forgive this man because she was able to see a little bit of these seeds here that we're talking about. Not in just this sutta. This sutta is about metta, but the suttas that come before this, about why we practice metta. Epstein already slit his own throat. And even if it is a cover-up and someone else did it, it's karmic seeds ripening either way. But I really have doubled down on Buddhism. I really would rather sit in front of the ice building and just meditate with a sign that says, please be kind. I know maybe you took this job, you got to feed your family, or maybe you get off on this. I don't know. I wouldn't write that part. regardless, it's none of my business. Here's my business. Can I maybe just plant a little seed that maybe you'll remember? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. It's none of my fucking business. Can I plant a little seed? Please be kind. Can you please see these people as human beings? Our opinions, we cling to them because we're scared, but it's destroying us. You know, it's really destroying you. I guarantee it's destroying you. I know when I cling, it's destroying me. I can feel it ripping my fucking guts out. And it's also destroying the world. We need to stop. We really need to stop. We need to train the mind in compassion. I don't really feel like reading much anymore, so let me see what the time is here. Oh, sweet. Yeah. By the time I edit this, it'll be an hour. Perfect. So I'm going to be done. I am going to be done with this episode. You got all kinds of things from me. You got mellow and chill. You got spicy. You got saucy. You got the F-bomb. That might have been the 13th or 14th time. You got to hear my rage and anger at men like Epstein. And then you also got to hear me talk about how, and I'm going to do everything in my power to keep my heart open to everybody. And I'm going to double down on compassion. Like my life depends on it, because from where I'm standing, it does. So thanks for listening. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, please take care of yourself. And yeah, I hope to see you next time.